We are back on another edition of the Southern Ontario Dirt Show podcast. It's Jonathan Howe alongside Travis Cunningham on episode 78. We'll have part two with the gunslinger, Ryan Hunsinger, later on in the episode. But first up, we got a lot of racing to recap. And we should also mention, shout out to the Willard family. We kind of did not talk about the 77 family number.
There's too many 7-7s.
I know, that's what I was thinking. I was like, because at first
And there's
I was
no
thinking,
current Willard running 77. That's why I gapped it. But BJ Willard, Bill Willard, Tammy Willard,
yeah,
all
I
huge
was
staples at Maryville. We
yeah,
totally
and
gapped
I think
on
of the
that one big time.
777 because of Cody running it for his dad this year. So that's where my brain
Tyler.
went when I was thinking about it. Yeah, and Tyler too. So, but yeah, so on to 78. Who do you got for the number 78?
Well, when I used to go to the go-kart races recently with Trevor Evans, he used to race against number 78, Nigel Pendosky, and I'm pretty sure him and his dad are on the Sittler crew. So and he's a real good go-kart shoe. So that's one of the only ones I could think of. So Nigel Pendosky, local go-kart boy.
I'll go with the Sonnenbergs that ran at Humberstone. Was it? I'm trying to remember who was. Were they brother or father son? Was it Harry
Father
and
and
Pat?
son.
Yeah, right. And
Harold
which one
and
was
Pat,
the
yeah.
elder? Harold. Yeah,
Harold.
was the father. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Like
I'm
in the
pretty
coupe
sure
days of Humberstone. And then Pat ran that car in the vintage cars back before they turned into like current modifieds with vintage bodies on them.
Yeah, and I'd have to check the spelling on the last name, but I think I went to high school with potentially either like kind of like a cousin or a nephew or something like that. But because there were Sonnenbergs at my Sonnenbergs in my high school, and for whatever reason, I feel like I remember one of them stopping me and talking to me about racing and how it was a family thing. So I could be just making that up in my head, but I feel like I've got that memory. So speaking of memory, there's a lot to cover here in terms of racing this week. I mean, last couple weeks, really. We had racing in the night we were recording from All Tech. So let's start with this short track super series. You called it as the Shepherd Williamson and Friesen show, and we didn't quite get that on the ninth that was night 3 of the Sunshine Swing that I'm looking at here, where Matt Shepard did win, but Larry White and Eric Rudolph round out the podium on that third night of the Sunshine Swing.
Yeah, All Tech, all 4 night, like Matt had brought his small block, Williamson, his spec small block, and it wasn't going too good for him the first 3 nights. The one night he got in a big wreck. There was a big wreck on the second night or whatever. He ended up with a podium on the third night. And then, Shepard won the 3 of the nights. Friesen won one of them. But the first night, I can't even remember what went on in that one. I think it was just the Matt Shepard show.
Mm-hmm.
Or no, him and Larry White did put on a good race the one night, too. There's so much racing crammed in that I've watched.
Yeah, that's why I'm looking at the Sunshine Swing night 3,
and
that's where Larry
James
Friesen,
second. He won the sportsman race second night. That was
he did
our biggest deal locally. Can't forget that. What else happened at All Tech? Matt Shepard and Stu Friesen were the only winners.
I was gonna say, you mentioned that it was a pretty rough time for Matt Williamson. For some of us who may not be as technically savvy, explain the engine choice that he made and why you kind of thought it didn't really pay off for him in the end.
Okay, well, sit down, because to explain the Short Track Super Series engine rules, it's going to take about an hour because there's so many different combos.
I need the Coles notes. I need to flip through it.
Yeah, they used to call it the Working Man Series when it first started because it was like good money to start and all that. But now with all the engine combos, they call it the Working Man Series because you got to work 6 jobs to afford all the engines, different kind of combo engines you need. But so like basically you could run a big block, an open small block, which I think is the choice of most racers. So basically like a small block with open heads, like you could put 18-degree heads on it. You could basically build a late model motor with a steel block. And then there's the spec small blocks, but they get a big, huge weight break, like the W16s in SST, I think, like weigh super light, like 2275. And then the spec small block gets a super big weight break too. That's where Matt was thinking. And last year, I think it was a little bit slicker during the opening 2 nights, and that's what he was hoping for. That's what he said in all his interviews. And it didn't really get slick like he was hoping till the last night. And who knows what would happen the night he got in that wreck, because he ran pretty good in his heat that night. and then very first corner, she was all tore up. So yeah, so he was definitely didn't like his engine choice the first 2 nights, but it did come to him on the last night. And yeah, that engine's all those things. Like I say, most people had open small blocks, or I'm pretty sure Shepard runs like that one's even got they got W16s, but like a bigger W16. They got like a 454 version of the W16 or whatever, like a Wagner LS base thing, and that's what Shepard runs. Like yeah, there's easily 8 different combinations on the short track super series that you can run. And for the normal fan, yeah, it can be a little confusing because they all have different weights and all that too.
Definitely. But either way, not the necessarily the season opener that Matt wanted to have in the modifieds, although he got a little bit of redemption later
If
on
you're
in the
gonna have a
Super
good
Duper
night, at least it's
series.
on the last night. I'd rather
Yeah.
have my good night on the last night than the other way, than like your good night on the first night and the rest. I'd rather have it the way you did it, but
Yeah, you want to trend up, right? So he didn't, like I
trend
said,
up.
we you did get your prediction right on the final night here at this short track Super Series modifieds, because Friesen ended up getting the win over Shepard that night with Williamson rounding out the podium there. So, um, but I did want to
That night it was rubber
mention.
down, but Matt was
I was
going through the field with a small buck.
Yeah, and I wanted to mention before we got into more modified talk, because I'm trying to go almost in like chronological order of the time and the dates that we missed here. So I'm looking at we probably should talk about the World of Outlaws at Volusia. Those races happened
Definitely.
February 7th and February 8th, so that would have been the first night
Nope, there
over
was
at.
4 of them.
Yeah, so those are
Because
the first two
seventh,
at. Yeah,
yeah,
sorry, first two, and then I was gonna say, and then it worked out that the next two were on the weekend, right? So,
yeah.
um, but the first two were the Wednesday, Thursday, and those would have been before the nights we're talking about. And I don't think I'm trying to remember what night we recorded last, because I feel like you might have been watching that opener from the World of Outlaws while we were recording. I
Yeah, I think it
think,
was the Thursday. Yeah, I definitely was. Yeah,
yeah, because Brad Sweet ended up getting the win over Tyler Courtney and David Gravel.
yeah.
Um, and of course, we already get the chirping back and forth has begun between High Limits and
Mhm.
World of Outlaws about which guys are winning what. So not a surprise, I guess, to see that. But uh, you know, David Gravel steps up and he gets the better of Rico Abreu on the second night. Justin Peck rounded out the podium there, and then it kind of went back the other way with Tyler Courtney grabbing the win over Rico Abreu and Brad Sweet. That one, Rico, I think,
That
had pretty
night,
much in the bag, right?
yeah, led the whole thing pretty much until the last corner, and he jumped the cushion. Even the good guys step on their wiener every now and then, and yeah, that's what Rico did that night for sure.
Yeah, it happens to the best of us, right? And the final
Hmm.
Saturday night, the February 10th night at Volusia for the World of Outlaws Sprint Cars, Sheldon Hodenschild gets the win over Anthony Macri and Brad Sweet.
There's another thing, yeah. Sheldon on the practice night earlier in the week threw like a slide job in practice and junked a guy, and he was getting a lot of heat for that earlier in the week, so he needed that to win to shut everybody up. I was one of the guys giving him heat for that slide job move because I'm always saying Sheldon's one of those guys. If he backed her down a notch, I feel like he'd win more races most times because the number of races he's been leading and wrecked himself in the last couple of years is definitely in the double digits. But got her done at Volusia, and he definitely needed to after that controversial slide job in a practice session.
Yep. Well, he's got the opportunity now, right? So we'll see how it plays out for him. Let's get into we're on the topic of sprint cars, so let's talk about the high limits and recap that. First race of the season went to Kyle Larson. He won it over Cole Macedo and Tanner Thorson. That was the matinee show, right? That was they got rained out and then pushed to I think it was Monday afternoon or Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah, it rained out and then pushed whatever I think it was Tuesday to the next night, and they ran that one first. And yeah, East Bay was pretty much just a big cushion around the lip on that one. It ended up being a good race between Larson and Tanner Thorson, and yeah, there's a bunch of them up there running for the lead, but
Mm-hmm.
Larson was able to keep it for that one. But the second race for him didn't go too well, that's for sure.
No, I didn't. But we should point out that Sam Haferteep Jr., who we've seen up north of the border as recently as the Northern Sprint Car Nationals in the 360s, he actually was in the field for this one, and he ended up finishing ninth after starting seventh. So that was in the first feature. And the second of the Battle at the Bay, $15,000 to win. Went to Sunshine. Tyler Courtney gets it done over Corey Day. Another good run for him. And Brad Sweet, Zeb Wise fourth, and Brent Marks round out your top five there.
That one was Corey Day led, and then Sunshine eventually got him. Sunshine's real good at East Bay. Usually wins one when the All Stars would go there. Larson on the like I said, he stunk the second one up. He was supposed to start third, got in a jingle like coming to the green, and they were gonna like he kept it going, and they were gonna try to give him his spot back for the initial restart, which I thought was gonna be bull crap. Anyways, I don't like. I hate like if you spin out on the initial start, even if you keep it going, you shouldn't get your spot. But anyway, his tire went flat, so he ended up having to go tail, and then he ended up spinning out once and getting in another wreck. So yeah, even the great ones have bad nights.
Yeah, absolutely. You're never gonna have
Good
a
and the bad.
100% win
And
rate.
there's another scenario. If I ever were to win a feature on a double feature night, I'd always want it to be the second one. Because if you win the first one and suck on the second one, the ride home's still going to suck, even if you won the first one.
Yeah.
Because that's what have you done for me lately? Only good as your last race, so that's why I hate double feature nights.
I wanted to ask, do you want to jump on and talk a little bit about World Outlaws, the case construction late models? I feel like we don't talk a lot about late models on this show, and sometimes I wonder why, because I feel like they kind of can give us some good racing action here and there.
They definitely give us good action. I love watching them. The bodies on the cars have gotten crazy and all that. Like they're all pretty aero dependent, but when you give them cushion, aero dependent doesn't really matter. And Volusia definitely put on a good race with all the big cushion it's had. And one night they had a huge wreck. I know that. Bobby Pierce got a flat coming to the green, I think. Who won? I know Devin Moran won one.
Nick
They've been having a
Hoffman
lot of
won the
shock stuff in the late
Thursday.
model world. Yeah, that was a big one. Everybody loves Nick Hoffman. But like the late models have been having a bunch of controversy lately with shocks where like through rod technology is banned. So shock companies started to build shocks with through rod technology, but just hiding the through rods.
Mm-hmm.
So then they banned those and then called it through rod technology was all banned. So late model's been going through a whole bunch of stuff. I'm not quite up on it. I had to ask Dalton Slack to fill me in totally. But yeah, that's all I got on late models. I don't. I love late models. Just when you're watching sprint cars and modifieds, there's not much time to watch anything else.
It gets really crazy really quickly when in world dirt racing when you're trying to keep up on the stuff. Like, I forget even some of the drivers that are moving over and jumping in different race cars, like Max McLaughlin, right? I was like, oh yeah, he's running late models now, and he didn't have uh, a super
He did a good
impressive
one the
showing,
run
I
night,
guess you could say. But he gained six
but one
spots.
night
I'm
didn't
looking at
make
the
it.
second night, and he's ended up 21st after starting 27th. So, for a guy who doesn't have a ton of late model starts, from my understanding, I'm glad to see him moving forward through the field, right? Especially with how good the Case Construction late models series is. I feel like it's a really everybody in that series, they don't come to play. They are professionals, and they will absolutely go hammer down with you at any time. So I'm going to try to keep my
That's the
eye
one
on
thing
some more
about
late
late.
model stuff.
I'll tell you the one thing about late models I like the best is that the World of LA late models don't put a race restriction on their drivers.
No.
Like if you're in the late model world, there's no race restrictions. Go run whatever you want, and that's what it should be in the sprint cars.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Well, I don't think you'd have the dramatic war that's developing. Like we were talking off air, and you kind of wanted to touch on how you're not really loving the Twitter beef thing between High Limit and World of Outlaws.
Well, it's not even a beef. It's more high limit, just poking the fun that their drivers were doing a lot of winning in Volusia. Not just. Does that really need to be done? Like, I don't know. They're already kicking their butt with the payouts and stuff. I don't know.
Yeah,
Twitter
right.
beefs drive me nuts, anyways. It's like, is that where we're at in the racing society? I'd rather them like make a video of beefing in the pits, like face to face, than
Yeah,
doing
like
that internet crap.
yeah, or I want like a direct 1-to-1 battle. Like I would love to see like don't have the series account do the talking. Have David Gravel get out of the car and be like, "Yeah, us World of Outlaws guys are here to defend our
Yeah,
territory or
I'd
turf,
much
whatever."
rather it
Right?
that way
Yeah, let
than
it be
Twitter.
between the drivers if you're gonna have beef. I don't think the series needs to get into it. Can you imagine like the NHL or the NFL chirping another league because of something that happened? Like
Yeah,
I don't know, man. I don't love
if it
that
wasn't
as
for
much.
Flow bankrolling high limit, they wouldn't even exist. So there's that. Although I'm sure that they're going to put on good races, and I do think the high limit, we might as well just call it the Flow series, the high limit series, uh, does have a deeper field. But like the Outlaws has more banger names a little bit. Like the big names in high limit is like Larson, Rico, Courtney, whereas they'll still have Gravel, Macedo, Schuhart, Shots. So
Hmm.
to me, the bigger names still goes to the Outlaws, but I think through the field, it's better with guys like Peck and Brent Marks, and it's definitely a little more filled out on the high limit.
Yeah, I don't mind the competition. Like I'm glad you guys want
Yeah,
to
but get Jaw Jackie
have
in person.
competition.
No Twitter.
Yeah, exactly. Let's have it play out on the racetrack, and let's, you know what, somebody who's got deep pockets out there that really, if you really want to get crazy, have like a almost like a summit series where it's 4 races from the World of Outlaws, 4 races from the high limit calendar. Guys can show up to both, and let's see whose series drivers come out on top in terms of trying to win. I think that'd be,
That's the main thing I hope happens between high limit versus Outlaws is the Outlaws drop their 4 race limit.
yeah,
I
like
pray to God that happens.
have some kind of world series of sprint cars or something like that where the best of both, best on best, and you know what, at the end of the day, whoever has a driver come out on top, they're going to get to say they're the better series or whatever, you know what I mean? Like I just think there's something creative you can do with it besides just going at each other on Twitter about who's having success where, right? So but
Agreed.
ultimately, sprint cars are back in a big way, and we've got 2 major series to
410s are
watch.
healthy.
It's healthy, absolutely.
I
Uh,
saw a rumor today. It's just a rumor. I saw it on the internet, but I saw it on Twitter. But like a dirt car might buy ASCS. It's just a
Ooh,
rumor, but oof, kind of makes sense because I know ASCS is struggling. I'm sure they're looking to sell. They've
hmm,
been having a rough go. And then ASCS announcer just left for USAC.
interesting.
And yeah, definitely interesting. That one's got to play out. That's just a rumor right now, but I was reading that one, and it's kind of it does make a little sense in my head. If that were to happen, I could see Dirk Carr maybe wanting a 360 thing. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't. I yeah, that would be really interesting to like. It would be great for the shows, I think, to like kind of align that way.
I have no idea. Like I say, it's just I don't know how they would do it if that did happen. Because like right now, you call it an ASCS National Series, but to me, it's like a Midwest Series. It's like all Texas, and it's nowhere near here. Barely ever doesn't come up here at all. So all the races when D Dubs was on the series, he had to drive like 14 hours was the closest one.
Yeah,
Although back then most of them were all 14 plus hours away. So not much of a national series really, if you ask me. So
yeah, the
maybe we can get
American
it.
Sprint Car
360s going
Series.
more national because like I've been saying, 360s are hurting compared to 410s right now.
Yeah, for those who don't know, we're talking about the American Sprint Car Series, and I kind of think that makes a lot of sense for the dirt. Like, you know, again, like going back to my involvement in playing the dirt game, like 360 is a level that you can pass through in career mode and whatever else in that World of Outlaws Dirt Car Series game. So, like, why not have a 360 series under your banner and really embrace that as a feeder into the 410 world, especially if you're trying to, like, imagine you have that alignment and you have that feeder series where on a national stage now there's somebody, a driver or two or three from the 360s can move up to the 410s maybe each year. Then you really don't have to worry about high limit guys, like guys jumping ship to go to high limit, because you're developing your own talent.
Could be what they're thinking. Like I said,
Yeah,
this is just we're spinning off a rumor I saw today on a rumor page, but
I like the rumors.
I like it. That one makes a little sense to me because I know there's no way ASCS is financially sound the way it's been going because they've been murdered with rainouts the last 2 years. Like, there's no way that didn't kill them.
Yeah.
Like, I swear they had to rain out half their races last couple of years. So
Hmm.
that can't be good. And the new guy just bought it, so I forget his name. So that makes a lot of sense to me.
Interesting. I could see at least an alliance or a partnership forming up there for
Yeah.
sure. We should jump right into basically what takes us up to date, which would be the Super Dirt Car Series. They raced starting on Valentine's Day last week, Wednesday the 14th, 15th, 16th. They were rained out on the 17th. Again, Matt Shepard, kind of the star of the show. However, our boy Matt Williamson did end up grabbing a gator while he was down there on the Thursday night.
Yep. And he won the overall Gator as well, the points one that was cut short due to rain because Matt
Hmm.
Shepard the night that money Matt Williamson won on Thursday, he finished eighth, and I think Matt's worst finish was a fifth. So even though Matt won all the Shepard won all the other races, our Matt won the Big Gator Championship. So that was definitely a good turnaround for him. From Alltech, he always wins a race at Volusia, so keeping that streak going.
Yeah.
The one night Larry White had the biggest meltdown one of the biggest meltdowns I've ever seen, where he's leading the race, looking like he's going to win. Comes up on a lap car of Brett Hearn, and if I'm Brett Hearn, man, it's got to be a tough look feeling like you're a lap car. Like I understand, like Teal's got like no drivers, so like he has to go out there and do that for any R&D possible. Like I'm thinking, but like man, if I was him, I would have retired when I won that World Finals race a couple of years ago. Like that would have been a way better way than be a lap car. Anyway, Larry White gets caught up with him and basically stops in 3 and 4. They basically wreck, but White gets her going and then comes down the track. And Rudolph was just passing him for the lead after all that because White had a pretty big lead.
Yeah.
And so he caves Rudolph's door in. I'm sure that got maybe a bit of the exhaust I had to have. Rudolph still held on for second overall. But then, yeah, White, instead of just trying to take it easy through turn 1 and 2, which is easy to say after the race and not being in the car, but I'm sure he's thinking that now. Should have just took her easy through 1 and 2, feel the car out, but he sent her into 1 and 2 like Lightning Larry does and hit the cushion wrong and barrel rolled it. So that was a hell of a straightaway, or turn 4 to turn 1 for old Larry White. I
Yeah.
felt bad for him. That's rough.
Yeah, it was a rough ride. I mean, it
Tough
doesn't
look.
look like it was a
Yeah.
fun trip down the straightaway at all. So, but let me give you the podiums here from each night. So the opening night went to Matt Shepard, Anthony Perego. Eric Rudolph has had a really strong but kind of quiet start to the modified season in both
Rudy's
short
been
track
good.
super series and super dirt car series. So I think he's going to be somebody that we need to keep an eye on in this year. We saw him get a win in one of the slack cars last year and that northern swing that the Super Dirt Car Series had. So,
Rudolph is top 5 dirt modified driver right now. There's no doubt.
yeah, right. So, and he definitely drove like it down there. Second night, we mentioned it went to Matt Williamson. Anthony Perego brings it home second once again. Larry White
Perrego's
third.
good too.
Yeah, he's coming on strong as well right now. And shout out to Larry White. I mean, he was competitive down there. That's for sure.
He's fast. He was super fast in Alltech too, but
Yep. Uh,
yeah.
Third night, Matt Shepard gets the win over Eric Rudolph, Matt Williamson on the podium, and that is enough for Williamson to clinch the Big Gator well down there. So that was awesome to see. And the Super Dirt Car Series, now we got to wait until the end of March when they're at New Egypt Speedway in New Egypt, New Jersey, for the Power in the Pines. That's the next time we'll see the big blocks hit the dirt. A little bit of time before the next big races, Travis.
Yep. Not that much. What's that? Oh, yeah, it's still over a month, but the year before
Yep.
you know it.
Yeah, and then I think, let me see if I got this here. The Short Track Super Series. I don't know when they are back next. Let me grab the schedule.
Ooh, I know that. Port
When
Royal, March 17th or something. March 16th, because that rain out, it's 50,000 to win. The rain out from last October, whatever they call that race.
well,
Speed Showdown or something.
I'm seeing one more before actually in
Where?
Georgetown. The Georgetown, the Jake Marine Memorial. That's
Okay,
happening March 9th, and then there's also an open practice the night before. But yeah, they're going to be down in Delaware before they head to Port Royal. So you are correct. The Port Royal's coming up on the schedule, but we'll get two
I'm just
short
pumped for
track
that
Super
one
Series
because
races.
I think some locals are going to Port Royal, so I can't say who.
But I'm not. I won't tell so. We'll wait to break the news here when we can, I guess.
Yep.
But yeah, no, looking forward to this bit of the schedule coming up. So we got some time to wait until we see some modifieds back on the racetrack, though. I think we are all caught up on
King of the
racing news.
360s.
Oh, that's right. I was like, I'm trying to go through my list of what's missing here. You want to wrap us? You want to rapid fire through that for us?
Sure. Ryan Timms won it. Liam Martin was the only local. I think, yeah, Liam and Ryan Turner were the only two local boys there. Ryan didn't make it. He was in a transfer spot in the B main and got nipped by Wayne Johnson on a late restart. If it wasn't for the caution, Ryan probably would have made it. And Liam won that B main, so I think he went 21st to 14th. Yeah, Ryan Timms kicked their butt. He went from like 15th to the win. It was a pretty good race on the Saturday. And the other nights, I don't think there was a big wreck. I think Peck got big wreck on the final night. I thought I was only really paying attention to the locals for the most part. Ryan got his first flip out of the way on one of the prelim nights. Blew me away that 9 years went by in a sprint car that he never flipped.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. That's a pretty long streak to have without flipping. So, yeah, I'm impressed.
Back in the early hammer down Ushweekend days, you weren't going to be able to go 9 years. I don't know, a little tougher then, but now that it's smooth and slick all the time, it's a little easier. Like
A little
D-Dub's
bit.
never wrecks either. Although he
Yeah,
did
that's
this
true.
year.
I was gonna say he
This year
had
he drove it all by
one pretty
himself.
big one while leading at Oshweekend this
Yeah,
year. So,
that was all by himself too. That was
yep,
one of his first ones.
yep. Um, obviously, stock car pavement racing is back in a big way. Daytona 500, who got delayed a little bit, but did you end up watching? Because I you called me out for arguing online
I
because
did.
I've seen multiple people complain about this race, and I thought it was one of the better 500s that we've had in the last 15 years, 10 years. So I don't know.
Well, to me, like I said to you, when it rained out on Sunday, I had the crew boys over and we put on the 2001 Daytona 500 just because I said, let's watch the day when NASCAR died with Dale. And but the rate, like the package back then, that was with the little wicker bill on the roof, and like the plate race before the 2001 Daytona 500 was, I'm pretty sure, the first or second race for that package, and that's Dale Senior's last win when he went 18th to the win in the last 4 laps.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, that package is a little better than what we got now. But what we got now, it's essentially, instead of the one train, it's two trains in a row where it's kind of hard to move, which
Yeah.
is better than watching one train. I will admit, I'd rather see them two by two. But I just wish we could get the lanes to move a little more like they did back in 2001. Back then, like the lanes would move, you'd be able to cut down. There was a lot more chopping between the lanes and different leaders. So it's
Yeah, it
pretty
seemed
close,
like
but
that
needs a
old
little tweak still.
package. I was gonna say that old package it
Like I
had like
said,
a better air bubble, like there was more
yeah,
gap
because
that you
that
had to
wicker
manage
bill
between the race cars.
completely broke the air
Yeah,
big time,
exactly. And you
caused a
couldn't just
huge
pull
hole.
up and push, right? Which is where we see a lot of
Yeah,
guys get in trouble, right? Push has gone wrong. The other thing is these cup cars have curved bumpers now. I don't know who thought that was going to be a good idea, but that's obviously not going to work well when you're trying to push. But that's a whole other story. But overall, I thought it was good. There was strategy. A lot of people are talking about how it sucked that they were going so slow for fuel mileage, and I was like, this is fascinating. It's like have you ever watched the Indy 500? Half of that race is fuel strategy and trying to save at
there's
the
one
end.
thing that bugs me about Daytona though:
What?
how slow the pole speed is. The fact that it was faster in 1955. Whew,
Yeah,
whew. It was
that's tough.
faster with a flathead engine in there. That's tough lip. I
Yeah,
can't
that
stand that one. They should let them turn it up for qualifying. I'd rather that. Like, let them one car it, like tune that MFR up and hit 200, and then when it's time to draft, make them tune it back down or something. But
it's the problem with
that
impounding,
100,
right?
oh, I know. I feel like you could get a Corvette to go that fast around Daytona. Like,
Yeah. No, I kind of want to see some maybe not record speeds, but I'd like to see them pushing up against like 195,
no way.
200
Beat Bill's
regularly.
record. I'd like to see
Have,
what they could go if they opened them up around Daytona. Easily 220.
well, I mean, probably at this point especially with the amount of like aerodynamics on those cars
Well,
now.
maybe
I
not
mean,
with the horsepower. If you opened them up and gave them like old Gen 4 horsepower,
yeah.
they were hitting 210 at Michigan back in the day.
Yeah, because I
They'd
don't
be
even think they're
slowing down
restrictor
there.
plates anymore. I think they're tapered spacers, I think, that are on there. So if
Yeah,
you took the
I
tapered
know.
spacer out,
Yeah. Yeah, I think they'd
yeah,
easily hit 220. But I think they
yeah,
should let them do that for the single car qualifying.
yeah.
Because
I'm not
horrible
against it. Not
seeing an
against it.
old 55 Chevy with a quicker Daytona 500 time. Like crazy.
Yeah, I think they might look at it at the very least, but we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. But either way, I thought it was a good race. If you
I
watch
didn't hate
racing
it.
and if you watch
I
racing of
honestly
any
thought they were
kind,
going to wreck more.
yeah,
I was
so did
waiting for
I.
more wrecks.
Yeah, the fact they made it all the way to like 8 laps to go, and everyone's like, "Oh, I can't stand this wrecking." It's like that's been pack racing since even 2001. I mean,
Oh,
was 2001 not when Tony Stewart did basically the same maneuver as what's his face in the truck race did this week too, where he flipped over and like landed on another car before coming down on all fours? Like, I'm
yeah.
pretty sure that was the same 500 before Dale unfortunately passed. So
Yeah, it
the
was.
big one's been a thing regardless of what package you want. The only way to not have a big one is to go back to tandem.
I know. The problem was, like in the recent years at Daytona and Talladega, I felt like there's been 5 or 6 big ones where back in the day there really was only the one.
Mm-hmm.
And where like seems recently there'd been 3, 4 like hell, it's seen sometimes. Remember that
The
one
cars are
shootout where they
tougher.
wrecked the whole field? It
Yeah,
is, the cars are tougher too.
the cars are
But
tougher. So
yeah,
you like there are guys who are bouncing off each other, and as long as you don't bend anything in the suspension, you get to keep going. So
yeah.
I think that's the reason why. Because other crashes would be like 25 cars get taken out at one time, and you might be able to tape it back together, kind of, but you'd probably lose 14 laps, and you'd probably be off the pace. So whatever, right?
Other
So
the other thing about Daytona, the finish was BS. Giving
okay,
it to
I
old
wanted to
Ricky
actually
Hendrick the
ask you.
third.
Well, I wanted to ask you about that finish because that's something that I've seen multiple different dirt tracks have different rulings on, and I don't mind next flag ends the race. If you take the white flag and you get a yellow, I don't think you really need to line them up again. Like, I'm sorry, I just don't think you need to. Maybe there's a more of
Yeah,
an
that one
argument at a
was.
dirt track because you only have one scoring loop to go off of,
I
but I
think
think
this one was
overall,
more that NASCAR is usually so quick on the yellow button, and this one they were like ah. That's
well,
why they're
I read their
a little
explanation and
slow
it
on the yellow
was
button.
their explanation
Yeah,
was they were waiting to see if the 2 car was going to stay down or if it was going to come back up into traffic. And as soon as it turned right to come back up towards the rest of the field, they're like, okay, now we got to throw it.
translation. We were really hoping we could get the Hendrick wins on the 40th or whatever anniversary it was to the day of whatever it was of Hendrick Motorsports opening story, and they got it.
Yeah, well, either way, it was going to be Bowman or Byron. So it didn't really matter how it was going to play out. Byron was going to either give up the lead to Bowman, who was getting a push, or like, you know.
I still say William Byron looks an awful lot like the Hendricks.
Yeah, yeah, here we go with your
There's
conspiracy
little,
theories.
there's a little similar. There's a little bit, little similarities there. Almost like Jeff Gordon looking like Mr. H these days.
Yeah, he's doing like an
It's
anamorph.
like, is
It's
it a
like one of
requirement
those
if you
books.
run HMS you have to wear a vest? Apparently.
Apparently, I think so. I don't know. White t-shirt, dark khakis, and a vest. It's the standard issue uniform of all executives on the branch, I guess.
Yeah.
um, so I wanted to. We should probably shout out a couple of things. I got to jump into our email here real quick because we are going to be back at Motorama this year. We are going to be live doing a show. And I believe we are going to be at the 4:10 p.m. slot on March 9th. So if you are thinking of going to Motorama this year and you're looking to, you know,
Go.
get a fix of some dirt
Show up.
racing,
Pack
yeah,
the seats at our show.
yeah, we were one of the
Then you
busier
can
shows
leave.
last year. We were one of
That
the
is,
busier
yeah.
shows last year, so I would really appreciate the support. And yeah, we're going to be doing a live podcast from Motorama on March 9th around 4 o'clock. So there's your warning. We'll keep promoting that and lock in some more details as they come along. But yeah, we are closing in on Motorama, which is super exciting. We'll probably have to catch up with our pal Greg McPherson from Inside Track to talk about Motorama and all things racing in that awesome publication that I've contributed to and written some stories about. And I'll also one more plug here before we get to Ryan Hunsinger. This podcast dropping on a Friday. If you are in the Niagara region, especially Niagara Falls, on Friday night, you can come down to Camp Cataract, and I will be performing. I'm going to be playing guitar and singing some songs, doing some cover tunes, some originals, and performing with my pals, the Cocktails. So come out to that show. I think Travis, you're coming down for that show, so
I'm
it's going to
coming.
be a
The
good
other
time.
Travis is coming. I think Beef's coming.
Yeah,
My 2 crew guys are coming. We're all
sounds
going to
like
be there. Show up. Let's go. Be loud for Jonathan. We're going to
that'd
be
be
louder
sick.
than the Cocktails
And
for
I
you.
think I'm even gonna have some merch available. I'm gonna have some stickers for purchase to help me pay for my EP to drop. Some new music coming your way. So if you like the tunes that you hear on this podcast, generally they are my own actual songs. So and
That's
some
my
of those are
favorite
going to
part
be
about our
released.
podcast. I've said it before. Johnny's
Yeah,
playing that song. You're
yeah.
Doesn't Kyra say it's she like we oh no, she said that when you were on stage. But like she thinks it plays too long to open the show, but I
I
would
think
agree if it
so.
wasn't you playing. She does have that opinion. But
It's
if it
promotion for
was just
myself.
some random plug doing it, I would agree with her, but because it's you, we should make it longer.
Yeah, maybe when the full song comes out, we'll like put it in one episode or something like that. But either way, A lot of good racing talk to have. It's great to be back in racing season. Great to see some of our locals having some success. Shout out to Matt Williamson. Shout out to James Friesen again. And let's get to
JMF.
part two of Ryan Hunsinger on the Southern Ontario Dirt Show podcast.
I mean, if you want to supply us with an engine, Travis, we could run some 360 races.
Don't tempt him.
I'm not supplying you with it, but if you, there's a lot like people like Kevin Pauls just bought Krutchka's motor for like $15,000 or something. Like that's only 5,000 more than a crate. And like you see some for like 17 US, and I'd hook you up with a cheaper rebuild. Like I wouldn't throw used parts in the garbage like lots of engine builders do. Let's just say that. Just so they can bang you 30% on the new parts. But you know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying. And
I'll give you a good rebuild.
I don't know, Travis. What I'm hearing is that I'm hearing a guy who's pretty content with the amount of man hours that he has to put into a race car already. And, you know,
There's no different man hours, though. There's no different man hours between a crate and 360.
I think to
Can't
run
be
at the
any different.
level that Matt and Ryan would want to run at, I think they would have to end up putting in a little extra.
What's different? What's different?
I mean, like,
you still have to do engine maintenance. You still have to do car maintenance. What would be the
I don't know.
difference?
I think Ryan, you can probably speak to this better as from the car owner standpoint, but from like my understanding, like I don't think there's like a massive jump between crates and 360s in that way. But I think it's just the amount that the regular guys who run 360 really think about their race car. I just feel like there's just like a different level. And I think going back to what you were saying earlier, Ryan, about how anybody can kind of jump into the crate class and, you know, be an average Joe and still drive a race car on the weekends for fun or for the competitive spirit, whatever. I just think there's something about that 360 division that takes a little extra to be at the top of your game, and I don't see you and Matt just running around at the back and being content. I know you guys would want to go out there and be competitive, and I just think that takes a lot of, or that takes maybe a little extra effort compared to what the crate guys are doing right now.
yeah, I would probably disagree, and I would agree with Travis in terms of the effort. Like I know last summer, like I've never worked harder on a race car. Like I had everything. The championships they're great. Don't get me wrong. Like running for points, I mean, there's good points and bad points, but the stress, like especially when you're leading, like I had my whole race car apart, like looking at stuff with a magnifying glass, like, and
Okay.
you know, like it's just, and so I don't know that there's, I mean, I can agree with you and disagree with you because I don't know that there would be a lot more work, but I also agree that it's a different level. And like logistically, Matt lives 3-4 hours one way, and Jeff lives
That's the main
three
thing.
4 hours the other way, and so that's we always say, like if we all lived close to each other, we could race 40-50 times a year, you know. But I don't know.
Like I want to say this, like those people that you mentioned, like you, your team, and then Ladiseur, and then Bardier. If those three teams lived in Hamilton, I could see them moving to 360 because it's easy and every week you can run, or like you know what I mean. It's like up the road, but you guys live in Brockville, so the crates is easier, and then you're near Toronto, so that way you would have to drive. You know what I mean? That's kind of different too because all those three teams would be good to enough to run 360 and get top fives and maybe contend for wins in if they got their stuff together on a night. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it'd be. I mean, if someone wanted to help us with an engine, I'm not saying we couldn't do it. Like I have two cars. I have my stuff is not all brand new, but I have good stuff. I have two complete cars. It's just I have one engine. Um, I have a car that's ready to go. Like I could, it's literally race ready minus the engine. So I mean, if someone if someone wanted to help us with the 360, then it's not something I would say no to because I agree. I think we could do okay too. I don't want to sound too cocky about it, but I think that I don't know that we would go and be competing for wins the first time we race it, but I also know that the way our team works together, and I think we could, I think we're capable of it anyways, of competing for wins. It's just like I said, it's a tough one because we're pretty happy racing the crate.
Sometimes you gotta stay where the happiness is. That's what
Gotcha.
I've learned from talking to other drivers that have moved up and down and all that sort of stuff. But what do I know? I just talk about the race
Okay.
cars.
Yeah, but you're right though. Like when I would like everybody always wants to move up, always wants to move up. And you know what is like I try to talk to some of the young or I've talked to some of the young crate guys and I've told them like it's great like all racing's great, but it's not the be all and end all to go run a 360. Like it's there's nothing wrong with running a crate. But I think maybe because I've raced a 360, maybe it's easy for me to say. Because then if I think about myself as a young guy, like a younger guy, like of course I would want to move up to 360. But I just think some people focus so much on wanting to move up and wanting to move up, and sometimes there's nothing wrong with where you're at. Like, I mean, this is my friends sometimes say that I'm getting old and sentimental, but I'll tell I'll
You
tell you,
are.
all of us that anybody that races a race car, whether you race a mini stock or anything, all of us are living our childhood dreams, and there's not many people that can say that. And so, I can look back on my racing career.
Oh yeah.
I
Love
can
it.
look back on my racing career and say I won. I don't even know how many races I've won. Like I don't know in total. I've won just under 20 sprint car races between 360 and crate, and anyways, that's not the point. But I can look back and say, man, I only got to win like around 50 races or however many races I won. But then I could also look at the other side and say like, how many people when they're a little kid, like when they're 7 years old watching race cars, how many people can or doing anything like when you're 7 years old or like a little kid, your dreams are so far fetched. Like I want to be an astronaut or I want to do this, and so few people actually get to do it. So if you put it in that perspective and look at it like all of us are lucky because all of us basically are living out our childhood dreams. Like it doesn't matter if you race a mini stock or a crate or a 360. Like we're all just lucky to be able to do what we to be able to do it, right? Because it's such a neat thing. And the other thing, like I said, my friends say that I'm getting old and sentimental, but I find when you're young, like it's all about the trophies and you want to rack up the wins and pile up the wins and stuff. But as you get old, you realize that the trophies are just pieces of plastic, right? Like, and it's more about like the people that you meet and the friends that you've made. Like, I'm still friends with people that I raced go karts with 40 years ago, and I still talk to a lot of like. There's a handful of them that I talk to on a regular basis, and so like, I don't even know where the trophies are from that I won go kart racing, but I have those friends, and so like I said, I as you get older, you realize like there's just far more to it than trophies. And just the fact that I got to race, I consider myself very lucky. And there's so many great people in racing. Like it's just a really, really cool thing to be part of. And I'm really lucky that I got to do it because that's all I wanted to do when I was a little kid.
Amen.
Well, I feel like you know what, Travis. I don't know if you got anything else for Ryan, but we've come to a point. Oh, what do
Oh,
you want
we
to get
do.
into?
We're trying to split it into two
Well,
episodes. We already. He's got to give us a Cayuga, another
okay, go
Cayuga
for a
story
Cayuga
or two.
story.
Just give us one or two more, please.
If you really want to kill some time, I have lots of stories. But I, hey, have you
Give
ever
us
had a driver on this show?
two. Like I want this one specific.
Specifically, what?
What? Sorry.
Have you
Go.
ever had a driver on this show that's raced wearing a disguise under an alias?
I don't think so. No.
No.
So when I was racing mini stocks when I was a kid, so there was this racetrack called Ridge, the Ridge, and it was in Ridgetown. So
Yeah.
I went up there with my mini stock, and there was like the local guys, right? They were kind of bullies, and like I said, I was young and probably cocky and a punk. So I got a flat tire, and I think I restarted in like 26th, and I got up to second, and then the it was something to do with the incident with the flat tire. So the one local guy like wanted to beat me up, and there was a big ruckus. So then I went back again, and it was the same thing. Like um, like I said, when you're young, like some of the older guys give you a hard time anyways, and then I went into this racetrack and they just didn't like me, right? So the track owner just said, "You're banned. Don't come back because every time you come, there's problems, whether you're causing them or not, whatever. Just don't need you here." So the following year, we saw a race advertised at the Ridge Speedway, and I think it was like 2,500 to win. And so my car owner said, "We're going to go to this race," and I said, "Well, I can't go there because I'm banned." So he said, "We'll call the track owner," and he's like, "No, no, no, no. I told you, don't come back. It's whatever." So then we decided that I was going to race with a disguise. So I dyed my hair and I had all this stick-on facial hair, and we painted. So I had my friend's ID just in case they asked for ID, and we painted his name on the roof of the race car. And we went there, and I signed in at the racetrack wearing. I think I had like a cowboy hat or something dumb like that, dumb like that. And so I raced at Ridgetown, um, wearing a disguise, and I talked to I mean it'd be a much better story if I won the race, but I think I cut a tire there, and I can't remember, maybe finished third or fourth, but I really don't remember. But I know after the race, um, I talked to some people would come over and talk to me, and then I went to change after, and I realized that the stick-on facial hair that I put on for my disguise was it came off, so it was like all over my race suit and my neck, and I had no idea. That was like I said, we were all crazy. But in terms of Cuga stories, I don't know. I will tell you,
I want the one like, were you there the day Earnhardt flew in on the helicopter or whatever? Give us the Earnhardt story. Give me an Earnhardt story. I love Dale. Do it for Dale.
I was there. I know. Um, yeah, I was there that day. I would have been really, really young, but I that's the race that he flew on the helicopter, started last and won, right? I believe.
Something
Or
like
like
that.
a
Yeah. I wasn't even born, but you were alive. I'm jealous of you being alive.
yeah, that was like 82 maybe or 81, so I would have been 5 or 6. I was there,
Yeah.
but I
I'm.
vaguely remember it.
Yeah.
I know Daryl Waltrip when he raced. Um, we have pictures of like my sister. She's like a foot tall with Daryl Waltrip, and he was over at my grandparents' house, and we have pictures with him. Like, and Bobby Allison used to go over there, and like I said, like you can never appreciate something like that when you're 6 years old, and then you think back now, and it's like, holy cow, like I was so lucky to be
No
able to do
shit.
that stuff. But yeah, that you think of like the ASA guys when I was a kid. That series, like you just think of the guys that came out of there, and even the guys that didn't make it to NASCAR. Like it's all the legends of short track racing, and it's just absolutely amazing the some of the names that raced out there. And I got to I got to I got introduced to a lot of them. Or I have a picture of myself and Ken Schrader. I was like 13, I think. So there's a picture of Ken Schrader and I up in the tower at Cuga, and I remember I was like, oh, what do I need to do to be a race car driver? I want to be a race car driver so bad. So um, when he came to Oswego, I guess it would have been, I don't know, 10 years ago or whatever. So I got another picture with him, and I showed him the picture and he signed it. That was a That's not a very good story for your show, but that's a good story for me personally.
I like that story.
The other thing,
We've had
the
Schrader
what?
on.
You what? Sorry?
Schrader, we've had him on when he was at Merrittville for like, we had a quick, and John had a
Yeah, we
quick
got him
interview
for
with him.
five,
So
10 minutes. He's been always super nice and super cordial anytime you get around. He's just one of those guys. And I remember talking to him about his days with like Hendrick, because I'm such a Hendrick Motorsports guy and fan. And he's like, oh, we weren't fast enough. And I'm like, well, you're fast enough to get your diecast reissued this year. And he's got like all these poles and all these wins at Talladega and stuff. And I'm like, I don't know, man. That was like kind of like, come on, dude. You're a legend. I think some of those guys are you forget how humble they can be, because to you and to me and all of us,
all drivers are too
well, we
hard
all
on
just put them up
themselves.
on such high pedestals all the time, and then they're not any
Yeah.
different from you guys. Where they run top 5 and they feel like they could have finished third, they're upset with themselves, and and nothing changes no matter what level you're at.
Yeah, and yeah, and that's like I was talking about with perspective. Like he's hard on himself like that, but he made the he made it a career, right? He made NASCAR. He won some NASCAR races, and that's pretty cool that he got to do that because he was a dirt guy, right? He started in USAC. He was the USAC sprint car champion, I think, in
Yep.
1982 or 83. And then I think,
Has one World of Outlaw win, one singular, but one, and like a bunch of USAC sprint wins, and like you said, the Silver Crown Championship.
yeah, and he's still racing. Like he's got to be almost 70, wouldn't he be?
Oh, he's got to be getting close, I
Yeah,
think. Yeah.
late 60s, I
Yeah,
think.
or over.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like it seems like I was telling you, like I just got to the point where I, I don't know what happened to me, but I was just scared of sprint cars, right? But there's some guys that I mean, it happens to everybody eventually. It's just the age kind of varies, right? Like between 40 and 50 seems to be the common time, I guess. But like then you see guys like him or like McKnight, like McKnight, like could go and win a super modified race tomorrow, I think, and he's in his 60s, um, and he's not scared of anything. Like he's completely nuts still, but yeah, it's
Yeah, it's one
crazy
of those
that
things too, and
Yep.
I mean, like, I've never really driven all that much at a high level or anything, but I've had concussions, and I can't imagine, going through those kind of injuries and trying to recover from that sort of stuff, and then wanting to get back in a race car. Like, I definitely could relate to the idea of hitting a point where you're like, I'm just not at my peak, and if I'm not at my peak, how much fire do I really have to do this, right?
Yeah, so 2014, actually, I came back and drove the crate car for Hills, and then Andy Mackworth had a second midget. So Mac DeMann was driving one, and then they had a second one. Um, and so I'd always wanted to race a midget since I was a little kid, and so I was running that car a little bit, and it was at Peterborough, and I remember, so it was in Hot Labs, and I remember I remember like I was on the front stretch. I remember going through one and two, and then I don't really it. I remember just being burned, right? And so
Hmm.
my wife told me you're too big for that damn race car. Like what's wrong with you? Like why are you even racing it? And I didn't listen to her, which I clearly should have. But because she said if anything happens, you'll never be able to get out because it's such a small car. But so I was burning and I could feel like my leg melting and it was I would not wish it on anybody. Like it was just horrible. But so what had happened is an O-ring or something broke in a water line and it just started dumping hot water all over me. Like like my upper legs and stuff.
Hmm.
And it's so weird because like everything slows down. Like was probably, I don't know, 30 seconds, but it seemed like it was like 30 hours. Like everything slows down. And then I had a cam lock belt system. So I was like writhing and trying to get out. And I was trying to unhook the belt. So I thought I was burning, but it was water. But I, I thought I was burning with like fire, right? I didn't know what was going on because just like the reaction of your body, like going into shock or whatever. So
Hmm.
yeah, I was turning the cam lock belt and it wouldn't release. And then I finally got it off. So I thought, like I said, I thought I was on fire, like with flames in the car. And my first reaction was to get the heck out. And then I couldn't get the steering wheel off. And, and then the crazy thing is I got on the racetrack, I got out and and nobody came over. And I was like, where the hell is everybody? Like, where's the safety crew? But then I realized after that, like I thought I was burning with flames, right? But then I realized probably looked like friggin' Ricky Bobby, like when he's running around because I totally looked like Ricky Bobby. Like the grandstands were full, it was hot laps there, and so there's a guy gets out of his car and he's like rolling around, but I wasn't even on fire. But anyways, after that, that changed me a lot because it affected me really badly mentally. Like um, I just probably wasn't the same after that. And what's funny too is like I think if you get out of the car on your own will, then you don't miss it, because there's a lot of guys I talk to where I don't know, they lost their sponsor and they had to quit racing, but then they want to do it. And even the breaks that I've taken, I wanted to do it so bad. I wanted to do it so bad. And then there's guy like you talk to a guy and he's like, I can never go back to a racetrack. Like I've never been back to a racetrack since I quit. Well, I love going to the races and I don't even think about driving anymore. It's not even something that crosses my mind. I'm grateful that I got to do it and I had some success and that's great. But I go to as many racetracks as I can. Like if we go on vacation, I try to go to a different racetrack and watch. Like I was a race fan long before I was a race car driver, and so I love going to the. And so I think there's something to be said about making the decision to stop on my own. Like I didn't stop because I started a family, or I didn't stop because I lost my sponsor. I stopped because I was like, I've had enough of this, and so I think It helps me be at peace with it because, like I said, I could care less about ever driving a race car ever again. I would probably drive like a street stock, a pavement street stock or something. Maybe I would probably consider doing something like that, or a mini stock, like maybe once or twice just to try it. But in terms of a sprint car, I've had my fill, and I'm not really interested in doing that anymore.
Hit him with the
All
question,
right.
Johnny.
Well, this is kind of a great question for you because you've driven so many different things. But we like to ask one last question here before we get to our end of our interview section. So Ryan, I got to ask you one type of race car, one racetrack to drive at for the rest of your life, whatever it may be. It can be something you've driven in the past. It can be something that you've never had the chance to drive that you always wanted to. Just one race car, one racetrack to drive at for the rest of your life.
I don't know. I knew you were going to ask this question because I watch your show, but um, I don't know. That's a really good question. Like I've driven 10 or 12 different divisions of cars, and I honestly think like probably Cayuga Speedway and probably a Thunder car on bias ply tires. And I know that
Ooh.
sounds crazy because um, I've raced a lot of different things, but like racing the street stock when I was young and that was before radial tires, so bias ply tires, and at Cayuga Speedway, it was such a challenge. It was some of the probably definitely in the top three of anything I've ever driven. So I think that I would choose, as crazy as it sounds, like a street stock on bias ply tires at Cayuga Speedway, because that was one of my favorite cars that I've ever driven.
Well, that's
Probably not an
perfect.
answer that you expected. Like nobody ever picks a street stock, but
No, but I mean that's kind of what makes this unique.
I
Like,
love it.
and especially from somebody who's driven so much, like you've got perspective to say why that's a good pick. So I like it.
yeah, that was some of the best times of my life. Like I raced against Jake and Mitch Brown's dad and his grandpa. Like his grandpa was a legend. I raced against him and Steve Book, and I, I mean the people were great too. But like I said, nobody ever probably picks a street stock, but that's probably what I would pick, because that's, and even on iRacing, I think street stocks on pavement are my favorite cars to drive.
I like it.
Good. You can join our league that I'm thinking of. I want to join. I want to start like street stocks, but do dumb stuff with them, like dumb Texas infield road course, then Daytona or Charlotte, and all the dumb stuff.
I'm in. I'm all for dumb stuff, especially if it doesn't hurt when I crash. And in iRacing, I can just hit the switch and turn it off and go upstairs. So yeah, I'll join it. I haven't really been on iRacing much. Uh, we moved in.
Yeah, I know you needed to join the
I
BRT
know I
league.
raced a few races with you last year, and I had a blast. But aside from not knowing how to do that communication thing, what's that thing called that you guys use? Discord.
Discord,
Yeah,
you boomer.
yeah. I'm not a boomer, but I,
You're
I
such
signed
a
up to
boomer.
Discord and I
I
created
love
an
you.
account, but then
You're
I,
close.
I just couldn't figure out how to use the Discord thing. So, but yeah, I hadn't iRaced since last spring, and then I hooked up my rig maybe a week or two ago, and so I've been playing around with it. Yeah, I'll join a street stock league, sure.
There you go, Travis. You're getting the wheels
Okay, sweet.
turning.
I'm just thinking of like not even a league, just having dumb races. But like me, I want to do a Daytona 500 with the Gen 4 because John's never called the Daytona 500, so that's the closest he's gonna get.
Hey, I mean, you never know.
You never know. You never know.
At least I won't.
Well,
I
if you
mean, I
really
won't
wanna
get to
call
call a
it-
Gen 4, but
Yeah, if you really want to call the Daytona 500, I think 25% of the people watching call some of it, like with their TV on mute. You can just
Oh,
put
yeah.
your TV on mute and do it by yourself.
Yeah.
I had to do that once. I can remember I was watching, I think it was like a Richmond race last year or 2 years ago. And for whatever reason, Fox's audio cut out. So I was like, well, I guess I could just practice calling the race from what I see on a monitor.
There you go. That's probably what some of the broadcasters have to do is watch a monitor, right? Maybe not racing, but
I think probably
Like,
most of them.
at least I
I'm pretty
think-
sure all the ARCA broadcasts, all the Truck Series stuff, that's all done out of a Charlotte studio. They're not even at the track anymore, right? So
yeah, ARCA, I don't think anyone over 17 is
Yeah.
allowed in the pit area.
Except for Andy J.
Yeah.
all right, Ryan. Well, thanks for coming on the podcast. Thanks for giving us a solid hour's worth of stories and material here. This is definitely going to be a two-parter, so we appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for telling stories, and good luck with 2024 and everywhere that you guys end up taking that 52 machine to this year.
Yeah, thank you. We're looking forward to it. And Travis, just let me know when I can pick that engine up and I'll
And the checkered is out on another episode of the Southern Ontario Dirt Show presented by Ohsweken Speedway and Bicknell Racing Products. Like what you hear, rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Connect with us on Facebook at Southern Ontario Dirt Show or find us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at SODS_pod. Have a question for the show? Email us, southernontariodirtshow@gmail.com. Thanks for supporting local racing in Southern Ontario, and we'll see you at the track.